If they outright refuse to eat your healthy meal, thinking they're just going to have a snack later, they're manipulating you. It's most likely subconscious. They're not doing it in a malicious way, but they're testing the boundaries. They've had snacks before. They know that that's a quick hit, right? But they're testing to see what the real expectations are. They're learning. That's what a toddler does. They're looking for consistency. They're looking for reinforcement. Hello, and welcome to Talking Toddlers, where I share more than just tips and tricks on how to reduce tantrums or build your toddler's vocabulary. We're going to cover all of that, but here, our goal is to develop clarity, because in this modern world, it's truly overwhelming. This podcast is about empowering moms to know the difference between fact and fiction, to never give up, to tap into everyday activities so your child stays on track. He's not falling behind, he's thriving through your guidance. We know that true learning starts at home, so let's get started. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Your toddler refuses to eat at mealtime, but asks for a snack right after lunch is all cleaned up. You notice he's asking for crackers or chips, cookies, or any so-called healthy bar all day, every day. And it's very clear she prefers snacks over any meal you cook. And she's not afraid to tell you, yuck, this is gross, I'm not eating it. I admit we all can get sucked into these tug-of-war over eating because of several noted facts. One, we don't want them to be upset. God forbid, a meltdown in the middle of the day with a toddler is a nightmare. Or two, we don't want them to go hungry. That's a bad reflection on us. And we don't want them struggling. Or you're trying to get things done and you just simply need 5 or 10 minutes without whining. And here's the big one. You're simply worried that they're not eating enough, and therefore eating something is better than nothing, right? Well, these scenarios have become such a common cycle in this modern world that it's now considered the new quote-unquote norm for most families. And I just want you to try to recognize that just because something is common does not make it healthy, optimal, or worthy. So what if I were to tell you a few little changes that you could make in your day and that most of these challenges would go away? In this episode, I'm going to dive into why toddlers end up snacking or grazing all day, and then give you strategies to combat this so-called new normal, with the main goal being to help you get your toddler, or any kid at any age, to sit down at the table at mealtimes and be ready. And that's correct, I'm saying to be ready to eat. So let's first think about what are these typical snack foods? Goldfish crackers, chocolate chip cookies, Cheez-Its, Doritos, packaged bar of any kind. All you have to do is walk down the middle of one of those aisles in the grocery store, and it's packaged food after packaged food. But here's the truth. These so-called foods are really designed to create an addictive behavior by all of us, designed to make us want more. And we've all done it, right? A bowl of popcorn or a bag of chips as we sit down to watch a movie, or we sit down at our desk to surf the net. What about those Girl Scout cookies? I don't think I really even have to explain that one, right? But if you need hard evidence, I want you to check out the book, The Dorito Effect: The Surprising New Truth About Food and Flavor. It was written by this gentleman named Mark Schatzker. Schatzker. It's about 8 years old now, but I heard him speak in 2019, and I was stunned at the calculated effort that these food companies put in to change the way that all of us, and it starts with our kids, with all of us how we eat. And if you don't have time right now with your busy life to read this book, you can look up Mark's interviews on YouTube. There are several pretty remarkable ones. It's going to blow your mind too, because in a nutshell, he studies the trends with industrial food production and how it starts, how it might start with corn or wheat, some kind of quote unquote plant form, but that it's so ultra processed all the way to the point that there's actually no flavor. So their goal is to make it up by adding artificial flavors that act like real food. And these quote unquote products are designed in the lab to fool the body into believing it's actually receiving nutrients that may or may not actually exist in real food. In a nutshell, it's a chemical trick on our brains, and it's all done in a lab. And it started way back, I think, in the 50s and 60s. And the truth is, my idea for this episode isn't to dive down that particular rabbit hole, but I wanted to give you evidence, and that's just one of the many books that I have perused over the years, that it's not designed, these food products are not designed to keep us healthy or nourished. They're designed to keep us chemically addicted to going back to want more. And the point is, if you already have a picky eater, these snacks or food products feel safer to them. And you might think to yourself, well, what the heck does that mean, Erin, to feel safer? Think about it. Every goldfish cracker tastes exactly the same. And if we contrast that with blueberries or strawberries, some are sweet, some are sour, some are crunchy, some pop in your mouth, but others are a little bit too ripe, and so they're kind of smushy, and your kid says, yuck, this is gross, and it's highly unpredictable, and your toddler pushes them away. And he'll do that especially if he knows the packaged snack foods that are highly predictable are readily available to him. So let's be clear. Yes, snacks, purposeful snacks, have their place in an overall healthy eating routine. Because you know this already, that little toddlers have smaller stomachs. They don't last as long between meals like you and I do. Therefore, their eating window is 2 to 3 hours, and that's better for them because it levels out their moods. It steadies their energy. It also builds their ability to self-regulate. All of this making them available to learn, to engage with their environment, to build their cognitive skills. But if their so-called snack foods or snack choices are full of non-nutrient, empty calories, it's not going to serve them. And so we need to be mindful and purposeful and plan ahead. I know that we've all heard of the term hangry, right? You know, where we're angry and hungry all at the same time, and we're not able to think straight. That's what happens with your 1, 2, 3, 4-year-old. So now I'd like to take a closer look at 2 main problems with all of this snacking and grazing all day. And it's just 2 main problems, and they do then cause this domino effect. But if we focus on these 2, then when I give you the strategies, it'll make more sense. So the first thing is that it messes with their appetite. And what that means is that it will limit their ability to be hungry at mealtime because they're just grazing all day long. They never get the chance to feel hungry. And if you're not hungry, you're not going to be interested in anything anybody prepares. So please acknowledge also that if they do feel hungry between their main meals, it's not an emergency. Hunger is okay. The goal actually is to help your toddler learn how to feel hungry so that when he comes to the table, he's ready and more likely to try new foods. And he's also more open to eat a full meal. So feeling hungry is not an emergency. So the second problem with this grazing all day is that it limits their nutrient intake. Like I just described, that highly processed food products, not real food. And recently I heard someone, I can't remember, otherwise I would give them credit, but they refer to snacks like crackers and cookies and chips as crunchy air, right? It doesn't really serve us because these ultra-processed foods are full of additives and chemicals. There's really no healthy nutrients. It's just empty. Even if the box says organic, no gluten, no soy, if you have to turn the box over and you read, a whole paragraph of unpronounceable chemicals that make up this pretend food. So our kids will burn through whatever low grade, quote unquote, fuel it does give them, that quick hit, right? For 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then they're back for more. They want something else because their body is not being nourished. And I know you've heard me say this before, but our brains and our bodies need healthy fats and protein much more than they need these empty processed carbs. And we have to help teach our toddlers, our preschoolers, how to appreciate that and how it feels when we're really satisfied with a healthy, well-rounded meal. So then also keep in mind that the carbs that we do feed our family, our young children, need to be real food. And I always say one ingredient. Think about broccoli or sweet potato, tomatoes, green beans. Or on the protein side, it's chicken thighs or steak or cheese. It's one ingredient. So snacks, therefore, and that word has taken on a new meaning, right? Snacks should just be a small meal between the main meals for your little kids. But snacks should be a combination of those single food ingredients, like the Egg McMuffin that I've shared in previous episodes, right? Heavy on the eggs, a little flour or a little binder, some cheese and chicken, or a meatball, right? With a simple binder and some salt. And then you can dip it in a ketchup. But you find ketchup with no added sugar. Yes, that does exist, right? But we have to be open and willing to take the time and read the labels. And I know it's hard, but we have to do this in order to support healthy growth and nutrition. I used to refer clients to this website called Ditch the Carbs by Lily Jenkinsons. And she's from New Zealand and she was a former pharmacist. And she really 10, 12 years ago, I think, built this remarkable platform. And it was for parents and practitioners to navigate healthy eating habits. And she had 3 little kids at the time who she used as her taste testers. And I really have been referring clients and friends and family actually to her site for a number of years. But in preparation for this particular episode, I learned that just this summer she sold her business. But if you Google Ditch the Carbs, Thinlicious pops up. So you're in the right place. I think these two businesses just merged and Libby, for whatever reason, is moving on, doing something different. But all of Libby's interviews, her recipes, her guides, she had a lot of guides to help moms with busy, lives and their little children, help the kids transition from heavy processed snack foods to real foods, right? And how to pack your lunches and how to prepare together and getting the family involved in the whole process. So you can still find a lot of her work also on her podcast called Ditch the Carbs. And I'd really recommend that you go check that out because it's a wealth of information and great ideas. I highly recommend it. There's also a few other sites that I refer people to. One is called The Diet Doctor by Dr. Andreas Enfelt, Enfelt. And he has a couple of articles if you just do a search, low carb kids. And I'm going to stop here. I don't want any of you to go wonky on me when I use phrases like low carb with kids or the word diet. I know there's debate and a lot of pushback and controversy over, this quote unquote diet and that diet. I'm not talking about that. I'm really using the term diet as what are the food choices, the primary food choices that you and your family have on a daily basis, right? And that the term low carb is just really looking at exactly what type of carbs you as the mother, as the father, as the primary cook in your home, what food choices are you making? And so I am not saying anything differently here in this episode or in any episode that the American Academy of Pediatrics don't say on their site. And if you go there, you can see that they highlight that parents need to focus on cutting out quote unquote bad carbs, which they identify as sugary drinks, sweets, and other highly processed foods that are quote low in nutrients. In other words, the prepackaged in a box, in a bag. So, don't go wonky on the terms because that's not what is important. If you've, spent the first 6 months nursing your baby or giving them the best quality formula milk that you could, and then you really tried to help them transition into solid foods, maybe you used bits and pieces or the whole method of baby-led weaning, and now they're, eating for the most part whole foods. It's after their first birthday and you realize that they're turning into a picky eater or that they prefer these prepackaged snack foods much more than any meal that you prepare. And that has become the norm, like I said, and I want to challenge you, encourage you, inspire you to stop and take an inventory and see how you can reshape this. And I've shared before that current data suggests 70% of the food that our American children eat is ultra processed. And that's average, 70%. That means some kids only eat ultra processed foods. So another phrase that I borrowed that can kind of help you is no naked carbs. And what that means is without adding protein, fat, and fiber into the mix, into the plate of your baby, your toddler, your preschooler, that without that balance, they're going to be back asking for another snack within, 10 minutes. And they want that chomping down of crunchy air that, again, doesn't serve them. Most of the time, it doesn't even require chewing. And I've covered that concept in a previous episode. I think it was number 34. So now you're probably asking, okay, I get the picture. I realize how we've been duped, right, into believing that this was food or that because it said organic or low carb could be healthy or healthier. Now you're probably asking, how in the world can I stop my toddler from grazing, right? You're kind of getting the message. So what can I do? So I want to cover 5 simple steps that can get the ball rolling. The first one is you need to create a schedule for meals and snacks and be consistent with that. That data shows that family meals boost the health and general well-being for everyone. And I've shared in a previous episode how we have to teach our babies and toddlers how to chew and bite and swallow, that they need models. And that through baby-led weaning and between 6 months and 18 months, that it's a learning process. And they're really not good chewers or mature chewers until closer to their second birthday in 2.5, right? 30 months. So make mealtime a social experience, which then will enhance verbal communication. And you can talk about the food itself, like, oh, honey, look at these green beans. We bought that together yesterday in the store, remember? Aren't they yummy? You helped me wash them and snap the ends off. They're so good in my tummy. Yummy, yummy, yummy. I have green beans in my tummy and it makes me feel so good. Be silly. They need encouragement to understand what this food is for us, right? It's a social event. It's nourishment. You can also talk about, your day. Hey, honey, what did you build in the sandbox today? Or you can talk about the future. Maybe after lunch, we can check the weather for tomorrow and make plans. Right? Today it's sunny. I wonder if it's going to be sunny tomorrow. Also, I've shared how meals or snacks are on 2 levels, right? It's like 2 sides of the same coin. You, as the meal preparer, as the parent, you decide when you're going to eat, right? The schedule, and what you're going to eat. And sometimes you can give them a choice, but it's all within your parameters. The flip side of that coin, your baby, your toddler, your preschooler, they decide if they're going to eat it, and if so, how much, right? We can't force feed them. We can't, coerce them into it. But if they outright refuse to eat your healthy meal, thinking they're just going to have a snack later, they're manipulating you. It's most likely subconscious. They're not doing it in a malicious way, but they're testing the boundaries. They've had snacks before. They know that that's a quick hit, right? But they're testing to see what the real expectations are. They're learning. That's what a toddler does. They're looking for consistency. They're looking for reinforcement. And they're wondering, if I whine again like I did, an hour ago, will she cave? This is not conscious. It's just like them sticking a stick in a light socket over and over again. And we have to be consistent with saying, no, that's dangerous. No, let's go put the stick in the stick pile or build a fence over here or whatever. You have to redirect them. And letting your toddler be a little hungry because they refused a healthy meal will not hurt them. And that's really, really hard for a lot of parents to wrap their minds around. Feeling hungry is not an emergency. And I heard this from a nutritionist years and years ago, and it made so much sense to me. That it's not an emergency and that's helping them. And I'll explain further on. But number 2 of these techniques or strategies, so you make a schedule and then you create an open and closed kitchen policy. And you're thinking, really? In this day and age? Well, back in the 70s and 80s, families were a little bit more structured, especially around meal times. And I know today, our modern society, that we seem to have food available 24/7. And it's become a very dangerous lifestyle for all of us, not just your toddlers, but your teenagers and your college kids and you and me. So I'm suggesting a bold suggestion to let's nip it in the bud with your toddler. So look at a 1-year-old who has 2 naps still, right? So they're going to have breakfast at 7 o'clock and then a snack with real food at 9:30. 10 o'clock, they go down for a nap. 12 o'clock, they wake up and have lunch. At 2:30, they have another snack with real food. At 3 o'clock, they'll have a nap. And then at 5:30, they'll have dinner. That's just a rough estimate. You make it happen in your family, but have open and closed kitchen hours. For a 2-year-old with 1 nap, it'll be slightly different, right? 7:30, say you have breakfast. 7:30. 10 o'clock, you have a snack with real food. 12 o'clock, you have lunch. Then at 12:30, you have a nap. And then at 3-ish, whenever they wake up from their nap, they have a snack with real food. But not too much, because around 6 o'clock, you have dinner. You start to learn what their hunger looks like. But you find some consistency and you build routines. That's key. Number 3, learn to say no sometimes. And you're like, really? Yep, it's okay. You can say things like, we can have a snack after we finish playing with your blocks. That's a nice distraction. Get them re-engaged. Show them engagement with you. Let them get a little more hungry. Maybe they just got bored or they want to do something different and they don't know what else. So they're saying, I'm hungry, Mommy. I'm hungry. I have crackers. Or you could say, yes, we're going to sit down for lunch after we finish the laundry and then read your special book. You want to pick out a different book or do you want your special one? Again, getting them a little distracted, but showing them that there's a routine to the day and that you can't just eat willy-nilly. Or you could say something like, yes, honey, we can have a snack after we get the mail. I need your help walking out to the mailbox. Do you think the mailman came yet? Let's look out the window. Do we hear him? Do we see him? Because you look at the window or you look at the clock and you realize, it's not quite time for snack. So you're saying no, but you're actually saying yes in a little while. You're validating, yeah. You're helping them tune in to their hunger. And then they can tune in to their satiety. And that's really important. I'm starting to feel a little hungry too, honey. I'm so excited. We're going to have lunch in about 20 minutes. And so you're helping them differentiate between mindless eating, I'm bored, or I want to do something different, or I didn't have enough breakfast, so I am getting hungry, and I don't know what to do with this hunger pain, right? Versus mindful eating. And I mentioned again in previous episodes about that we have 8 sensory systems. And the 5 that are most common, right? The sight, the hearing, taste, smell, touch. Those are the main 5 that we're all familiar with. But then we have 3 hidden sensory systems. And there's the proprioceptive and the vestibular. But the 8th one is called interoceptive. And that's being in touch with our internal organs. And it takes a lot of conscious learning to understand what that means. And physical and cognitive development, right? And that being in touch with our internal, interoceptive, means like, oh gosh, my bladder's getting full, I have to go pee. Or gosh, I feel a little, full, I might have to go poop. I better go now so I have 30 seconds to go to the bathroom and I don't have an accident in my pants, right? Or you can help them understand when they're feeling tired after they had a big play date or they went on a hike with you. I'm feeling so tired. we were out in the sun and we ran and we laughed and we climbed. That makes me tired. Or maybe your heart is racing when you walked up to a big hill after you went and got the mail, right? Oh, feel my heart. I feel your heart. Yeah, or maybe you're feeling excited because your grandma is coming in the afternoon to visit. I'm getting excited. It's hard for me to concentrate. Or the simple, basic human needs where you're getting thirsty or you're getting hungry. You're getting in touch with your internal organs and how it feels to be in your body and interact in this environment and what your human basic needs are. But we can't develop this attunement if they're always eating on the fly. Or if they're running around between bites, they take a little bite here and a little bite there. They have to be able to feel it and get in tune. And by having a schedule and routines that helps them slow down their day, get organized, and get in a groove. So number 4 in these tips would be to sit down at meals and snacks, right? So you have a schedule, you have specific times where the kitchen is open and closed, and it's okay to say no sometimes. In 20 minutes, we're going to have our snack or have lunch. And then number 4, to sit down, right? Because the number one problem or the concern that parents often share as they transition their babies from breast milk or formula into solid foods is that they're going to choke. And sitting down is the best way to reduce that risk. So if your lifestyle right now is that they're a grazer, I'm going to share some quick ideas to help break that cycle. And it's really about sitting down and letting them know that there's a new schedule. And if you're excited and you're positive, then they will be too. Because with this better routine, we're going to have more time to play, right? And we can plan this together. And the one tool that I always recommend, and I've recommended it my entire career, is for parents to get a red timer with a visual countdown. And you can just Google it on Amazon. It's like $10-15. You can get a big one or a small one. I used to have a couple at my office, 2 different sizes, but it's just 60-minute counter. It's quiet, doesn't make any noise or anything, but it's a visual reminder. And they can help you to push the little circle around to 15 minutes. Oh, in 15 minutes, it'll be lunchtime. Or 30 minutes, let's finish playing. And then intermittently, you look at the red clock. And then they begin this internal sense of time. Because otherwise, when you say, oh, in 15 minutes, they have no idea. But that visual cue helps their body know that it's not this open-ended, willy-nilly, I have no idea what mom means by 15 minutes, right? But kids love this little red timer. And I highly, highly recommend it. So the other piece is that recognize that toddlers' appetites are somewhat variable. And so you have to look at a whole week or even 10 days. When I had my private practice, I would have parents come in with a food list, but to take it over 7 to 10 days because it is variable, especially with toddlers. And so you need to look at not only the food list, but when, where, and how, right? So if you're sitting down with them 5 times a day, 3 meals, 2 intermeals, right, or snacks, for 7 to 10 days, that's a lot of data you're gathering. And then you'll be able to see patterns and you'll be able to adapt according to what your goal is. Your goal is for them to eat healthy, to stop grazing all day, to have consistent energy, right? To build and learn in this environment with good nutrition. You can adapt if you see that, oh, maybe when he first wakes up, he's not all that hungry. And so you just have something little. Or then the snack at whatever, 9 o'clock, could be more robust. Part of my deep dive into history around food and mealtime and baby food and all of this is that breakfast, right, to break that fast through our sleeping night, before the 1920s, it was just simply leftover dinner. But then there was this gentleman called Mr. Kellogg who introduced boxed cereals. And trust me when I say that that's a real dark rabbit hole for another day, or if you want to do it, you can, but you can just look up Mr. Kellogg, and he had a brother, and there was some interesting business dynamics between those two. But his whole thing in the mid to late 20s was that he introduced cereals, boxed cereals. And to me, it has always been one of the worst products that was ever put on the market for all humans, in my opinion. I didn't have it when I was growing up because we were so poor. Every once in a while, we'd have Cheerios, and that was actually a treat. And in hindsight, that was probably one of the best perks my parents ever gave me. And because I didn't grow up with cereal, I didn't introduce that to my daughter. And so she had no idea until she was much older. And we were with our cousins, and, she was probably 6, 7, and they're dumping out this cereal and pouring milk over it. And she's like, what the heck is that? And fortunately, she never got the hang of that cereal. But by sitting down with them and collecting this data, you can gain a lot of information on how your child is eating, one, and where his hunger peaks and valleys, right? And then you can help him get in touch with that. Or maybe he's waking up earlier and earlier in the morning because dinner is too early and he can't sustain it for that 10, 12 hours. But that's information that is very, very powerful. Help them understand that we sit down together and share this meal together. And when we sit down, we're supposed to feel hungry. And then we stop eating when we're full, right? No, honey, you don't have to finish everything on your plate if you feel full. You can just sit there for a couple more minutes and see how your tummy feels, if it's really full or if it's just taking a break. And then it's also important to pace the meal so his hunger hormones can begin to communicate with his gut, right? The brain-gut connection. So we have the ghrelin hormone, which tells us when we're hungry, and then the leptin, which tells us when we're full. And there's that kind of, myth, or there is a little science to it, that it takes 20 minutes for our brain to communicate with our gut to tell us when we're full. So if you pace the meal, and if it's a social event, and if it's relaxing, and there's no real rush, and every meal isn't going to be perfect like this, but this is what your goal is. This is what you're striving for, especially when they're young, because you're building that healthy relationship with eating and food and social communication. But it takes time to practice. And you're going to have rushed days. Like I always say, it's the 80-20 rule, right? If 80% of the time we can hit our mark, then that 20% is going to be off. And that's just human nature. And then number 5, to round this out, is really to prioritize a well-rounded, healthy, balanced meals and snacks. And how you simply do this, and this is the big bomb for this episode: stop buying junk food. And that's what it is. It's junk food in a box, in a bag. I know that's a big, huge statement, but go check out the Dorito effect. Check out Mark's interviews. It's pretty wild when we realize what this ultra-processed food, quote unquote, is, right? It's just these snacks are crunchy air. And then on top of that, you also have all the pureed foods or the drinkable sugary crap, all the juices, the dried fruit roll-ups, which, I was a big purchaser of. And then these pouches that kind of popped into our world about 10 years ago. That's another big dark story. But applesauce and all the flavored yogurt. I mean, I love raw, natural, unflavored yogurt, but it's really, really, really hard to find. You go into any grocery store from Vermont to New York to California to Florida. I mean, all these high-end grocery stores, it's really hard to find plain yogurt. And the other processed foods, or what in my industry, what we've talked about and joked about, but there's a lot of truth to, is the white foods, right? Pasta, rice, breads, highly processed. Nowadays, there's not a lot of nutrient value in that. And you can have some of that, but have a smaller portion as a side dish. And try your best not to lead with these white flours or these white foods. Our bodies just turn them into sugar as quickly as it's broken down. So even if you put a little cream sauce or a little bit of turkey or burger meat, it doesn't balance out enough. So lead with the healthy fats, the avocados or the sweet potatoes with butter or the chicken or the steak. Lead with those and then have a little rice or pasta on the side, because those will not hold the satiety. It's digested too quickly, and then boom, you're back to the picky eating cycle. Lead with the healthy fats and the proteins, and then add real whole vegetables. Remember, those one ingredient foods. So the two main problems that I identified that grazing and all-day snacking does, it messes with your appetite. They never get to feel hungry. And two, it limits the nutrients that your little baby is taking in. And then the 5 simple steps that you can take to start today. 1, make a schedule for both snacks and meal times. 2, create an open and closed kitchen policy. It will also help big time as they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Number 3, learn to say no sometimes. That helps them get in touch with the interoceptive system. Am I really hungry, or am I just bored or tired or cranky, or I just want attention, right? Number 4, sit down at meals and snacks. It's a social event. And number 5, prioritize well-rounded meals and snacks. At the end of the day, just simply stop buying junk food. You're not going to throw it all out on day 1, but you can start with juices. Use up what you have currently, and then just don't go buy it again. I know that's easier said than done. A big, bold statement. If you can avoid going down that slippery slope, start today. So this week, your challenge, and this is it. Just examine your pantry, look in your cupboards, look in your fridge, look in your freezer. What percentage is processed? Ultra processed. What percentage? And I know it's hard to wrap our mind around this, but snacks are hard to manage because our modern world is so quote unquote convenient. The prepackaged foods are really easy. The fast foods are really easy. The drive-thrus are really easy. And that's why planning ahead, focusing on nutrient-dense meals and snacks will always serve you and your family better. Letting snacks be something to keep the engine running smoothly between the main meals. You and I don't need snacks, but your toddler, your preschooler does. And then keep in mind, no crunchy air, no naked carbs. So what's in your pantry? What's one thing that you can omit today. Help your little guy or your little gal become the best version of themselves. You're on this journey together. You are the leader. I'm so grateful that you're taking time out of your busy, busy day to learn, that you're eager to learn. What else can you do? What else can you tweak to build a happy, healthy home life where your kids are thriving under your leadership? And remember, if you're finding benefit from these episodes, please share and consider writing a positive review. It's the only way podcasts and YouTube channels can get pushed out to other people in similar positions that are seeking guidance, that are seeking advice, who want to do the best for their family, just like you. So have a great week. God bless, and I'll see you next time.